The horse came out of the dust before the man did. Late afternoon light bled across the flats, turning everything the color of old copper. The boy saw the animal first black, rib-thin, but still proud in the neck, walking without a rider's guidance. It moved slow, deliberate, as though it had chosen its path and would not be hurried from it. The boy set down the bucket he was carrying and shaded his eyes. There was a rider after all, slumped low in the saddle, folded like a man who had forgotten how to sit upright. The wind shifted and carried the smell iron and sweat, something gone wrong. "Pa!" the boy called, though he knew before the word left him that his father wouldn't come. His father had been gone 2 winters now, buried under hard ground that never softened. The horse stopped a few yards off, its flanks trembled. The man slid, not quite falling, one boot catching the stirrup before he hit the dirt. He stayed there on his side, breathing like it hurt him. The boy walked closer. The man's face was gray beneath the dust. A beard had grown wild across his jaw, and there was a dark bloom spreading across his shirt just under the ribs. He opened his eyes when the boy's shadow crossed him. "You alone?" the man asked. The boy nodded. The man tried to push himself up and failed. He coughed, and the sound seemed to tear something loose inside him. When he spoke again, it came softer. "Water." The boy ran for the bucket, sloshing half of it over the rim in his haste. He knelt and lifted the man's head. The stranger drank in small, careful swallows, then turned his face away. "Enough." They sat like that a moment. The horse stood quiet behind them, ears flicking at flies. "What's your name?" the man asked. "Eli." The man smiled, or tried to. "Eli," he said, as if testing the sound of it. "That's a good name." He reached for the boy's wrist, his grip surprisingly strong. "Listen to me. Ain't got long, you understand?" Eli didn't answer. "There's a town?" "2 days west, Dry Creek. You don't go there." He swallowed, eyes closing briefly. "Men there, Sheriff Barlow. Some others, they'll take what they want and call it law." The boy shifted, uncomfortable. He didn't know what to do with words like that. The man drew a breath that shuddered in his chest. "I was bringing someone out. Didn't make it." His gaze drifted somewhere past Eli, as though he could still see her. "Name was Clara. They had her." "Auction block like she was stock," said she owed a debt, lies. Eli felt something tighten in his stomach. He had seen cattle auctions. He knew what it meant to be priced. The man's hand loosened, then tightened again with sudden urgency. "Horse is yours now. Name's Mercy. She take care of you if you treat her right." "I can't," Eli began. "You can," the man said, and there was iron in his voice despite the weakness. "You take her. You stay clear of that place." The wind moved over them, lifting dust in small spirals. The man's eyes softened. "I was like you once. Thought I could outrun things." He looked at Eli, really looked this time, as though fixing him in memory. "Don't carry what ain't yours to carry. But if you do, finish it." His hand slipped from Eli's wrist. The boy waited for another breath, another word. None came. Mercy lowered her head and let out a low sound, not quite a whinny, something closer to grief. Years passed like weather. Eli grew into his bones. The land shaped him-long days under a punishing sun, nights cold enough to crack a man's resolve. He learned the language of silence, the way dust could speak of distant riders, the way a horse's ear could catch what a man could not. Mercy stayed with him. She filled out, her coat turning glossy black again, her stride long and sure. Folks would offer money for her when he rode into scattered settlements, but Eli never answered. He carried the man's words with him, though he did not speak them. Dry Creek lived somewhere at the edge of his mind, like a place in a half-remembered dream. It wasn't until he heard the name Clara again that the past rose up, sharp as a blade. He was in a saloon outside Amarillo, the kind of place where the piano was always slightly out of tune and the whiskey burned hotter than it should. He sat at the far end of the bar, hat low, hands wrapped around a chipped glass. 2 men talked nearby, loud in the way of men who had drunk enough to forget caution. "Huh, told you, she's still there," one said. "Barlow keeps her close, says she's worth more alive than sold off." The other laughed. "Funny kind of lawman. Ain't no law in Dry Creek, just what Barlow says." Eli didn't turn his head. He let the words settle. "Name's Clara, you said?" the second man asked. "Yeah, pretty too, or was, hard to tell now." The laughter that followed scraped against something deep in Eli's chest. He set the glass down. "Where's Dry Creek?" he asked. The men looked at him, surprised. "Couple days west," the first said. "Why?" Eli left coins on the bar and walked out without answering. Dry Creek looked like any other town from a distance. Low buildings crouched against the wind, a water tower leaning slightly as if tired of standing. But there was something off in the way the place held itself, too quiet, even for a town that's small. Eli rode in at midday, heat shimmered off the ground. A few men watched him from the shade of the saloon porch, their eyes measuring. He tied Mercy at the hitching post and stepped inside. The air smelled of stale beer and sweat. A woman moved behind the bar, her movements careful, like she was trying not to draw attention to herself. She didn't look up when he approached. "Whiskey," Eli said. She poured it, hands steady. "You ain't from here," she said, not meeting his eyes. "No." A pause. "You should drink and leave, then." Eli took a sip. It tasted like dust. "I'm looking for someone," he said. That got her attention. Just a flicker, but it was there. "People come here to be lost," she said. "Not found. Clara." The name hung between them. Her hand stilled on the bar. For a moment, Eli thought she might deny it. Instead, she leaned closer, voice dropping. "You don't say that name out loud. Where is she?" The saloon door opened before she could answer, boots on wood, heavy and unhurried. Sheriff Barlow filled the doorway. He was a big man, not just in flesh but in presence, the kind that pushed others aside without effort. His badge caught the light, polished bright. "Well now," he said, voice carrying, "we got ourselves a stranger." Eli didn't turn. Barlow stepped closer. "I asked you something." Eli finished his whiskey, set the glass down and turned slowly. "Just passing through." Barlow studied him, eyes narrowing slightly. "Don't look like it." A silence stretched. The room seemed to hold its breath. Barlow smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You mind telling me why you're asking about one of my employees?" Eli met his gaze. "She ain't yours." The smile vanished. "Everything in this town is mine," Barlow said softly, "including the rules." He gestured, and two men moved in from the sides. Eli didn't reach for his gun. "Not yet. I'm not here for trouble," he said. Barlow chuckled. "Trouble's already here, son. Question is what you plan to do about it." Eli thought of the man in the dust, of the way his voice had broken on that name. He thought of Mercy waiting outside, of the years he had spent not carrying what wasn't his. Then he thought of the words that had followed. "If you do, finish it. I'm taking her," Eli said. The room seemed to shrink. Barlow's expression shifted, something like amusement flickering there. "You and what army?" Eli didn't answer. The first punch came from the left. He took it, felt the world tilt, then righted himself. The second man went for his gun, but Eli was faster now, years of quiet coiled into sudden motion. His hand moved, steel flashed, and the sound of the shot cracked through the room. The man fell. Everything broke loose then, shouting, chairs scraping, a sharp bark of gunfire. Eli moved through it with a kind of terrible calm, each motion deliberate. He didn't fire unless he had to. He didn't miss when he did. Barlow retreated toward the back, drawing his own weapon. "You don't know what you're doing," he shouted. Eli followed. "I do," he said. They found Clara in a small room behind the saloon. She sat on a narrow bed, wrists bound, eyes hollow from too many days without hope. She looked up when the door burst open. For a moment, she didn't seem to understand what she was seeing. Barlow stepped in behind Eli, gun raised. "Step away from her," he said. Eli didn't move. "You shoot me," he said. "You lose your shield." Barlow hesitated. That was all it took. Eli turned, fired. Barlow staggered, disbelief etched across as he fell. The silence that followed was heavier than the gunfire had been. Eli crossed to the bed and cut Clara's bindings. She flinched at his touch, then stilled. "It's done," he said. Her eyes searched his face. "Why?" He thought of the man again, of the horse, of the years between. "Someone asked me to finish it," he said. They left Dry Creek as the sun dipped low, the town shrinking behind them. No one tried to stop them. Clara rode behind Eli, her hands light on his coat, as if unsure she was allowed to hold on. They didn't speak for a long time. When they stopped that night, the desert stretched wide and empty around them. Stars burned overhead. Clara sat by the small fire, watching the flames. "You ain't staying, are you?" she said. Eli shook his head. "Where will you go?" He looked out into the dark. "Somewhere quiet?" She nodded, as if she understood. "Thank you," she said, and the words carried more weight than they should have. Eli said nothing. In the morning, he saddled Mercy. Clara stood a little apart, the first light touching her face, making her look younger than she was. "There's a ranch east of here," Eli said. "Good people, they'll take you in. And you?" He swung into the saddle. "I got miles yet." She stepped closer, then stopped. "Will I see you again?" Eli looked down at her, at the strength returning to her eyes. "Maybe," he said. He turned Mercy toward the horizon. He didn't look back. But as he rode, the weight he had carried for so long felt lighter. Not gone, maybe it never would be, but shifted, set down in part. The desert opened before him, vast and unforgiving and somehow full of possibility. Behind him, a woman began again.